I'm free.
Okay.
I think whilst we're waiting, maybe I could ask everybody in the meeting, it's during my presentation, I'm just going to do a little demonstration and you'll need an A4 page. So just a regular A4 page and maybe a pen as well and a scissor. So if you want to grab a few minutes and just get hold of a page and a pair of scissors and a pen, that would be easier for you to not have to dash around and look for it just now.
Right, I think we can start once again. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ellie Olivier from the South African Mathematics Foundation. I've been involved with mathematics Olympiads and competitions since 1997. So it's a privilege to host this session this morning. We're going to look at when mathematics meets art, presented by two of my colleagues, Katharina Stein and Prof. Werner Olivier from the Govan Mbeki Mathematics Development Center at Nelson Mandela University. Before I hand over to them, just a few housekeeping rules. I'm going to ask you not to interrupt the two presenters. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So you can either post your comment or question in the chat room, or you can wait until the end. And then if you prefer to raise your hand and ask the question in person, then you can do that as well. Katharina and Werner, we would like to start the next session on time. So the organizers have asked me just to give you an indication towards the end of your presentation that it is time to wrap up. Thank you. We look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Ellie, and thank you everybody for attending here. It's nice to see everybody. Just for information, I will be presenting today, and my Werner Olivier will just be assisting or helping with the answering of questions, maybe also looking at the chat if possible. But thank you very much, and I look forward to sharing a little bit about our journey with maths and art. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to pop them in the chat or otherwise at the end of the session. As I've already said, I'm going to do a little demonstration. I would like some of you to also take part in this demonstration later on in my talk. So if you do have just a regular piece of, it doesn't have to be an A4 piece of paper, but just a piece of paper, a ruler, and a scissor close by, as well as a pen, that would be very helpful or to take part later on. I'm going to share my screen and then let's get the ball rolling. Okay, there we are. Okay, my talk is when maths meets art, and is it even possible? First of all, I just would like to say a little bit about where we came from, which was STEAM, and then we're going to look at some math art tessellations. Now, first of all, what is STEAM? It's a new educational approach, and it's actually an international trend there's an international trend towards STEAM. At our center, we are continuously researching mathematics education trends in the world, And the front runners of mathematics education, the Finnish people, Chinese, people from Singapore, we've looked into their systems, and although their systems are, the whole system is quite different from ours, we decided to look at elements that we can use in South Africa to help our situation. Now, previously, or the subjects that were, it was known as STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. What we're currently doing now, what currently is being done, is adding art to this mix. And this, as I said, is at this stage a focus of what we're doing at the center. Now, the original STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths, was already a step ahead from what we traditionally did in the traditional maths or the classes, different classes. We taught the subjects in, let's call it silos. So in the maths class, we taught maths and we didn't really bring in any science concepts or science. We didn't really mingle technology and engineering with maths and with science. But what happens in the STEM mix is where we start bringing in the other subjects as well. We mix them with real life situations and problems, and it's a lot less teacher-centered, so more a learner-centered approach. Now, why are we combining maths and art, first of all? So now to move away from STEAM. So STEAM was what initially brought us to this. What researchers found is that there's a huge positive influence in including art in the performance of learners and in the development of the STEM subjects. There's a need to think more creatively. And I think with just the recent pandemic that we're still currently in, we need innovators in South Africa. And I think that there has been very little other time in South Africa where we've had so much change taking place so quickly. And we've had to innovate, create, do things differently. And the combination or combining art into this mix stems or creates creativity or brings up a different way to think about things. We wanted, through our combination of maths and art, and we did this in a math art competition, explore maths and art in a different manner. And what motivated us to keep on doing this was the responses that we actually received from teachers and learners during the competition. And if you want to know a little bit more about that, you're welcome to later on to go to our Math Art website and then also investigate a little bit more of what we're doing in this competition. But let's go back. We all know that we use visual pathways when we work on mathematics. However, in most of the teaching at schools, mathematics is taught as a subject of numbers and symbols. So people don't really use pictures or art to teach mathematics. However, mathematicians rarely, if ever, solve a problem without some kind of visual representation. If it's either whether it's doodling or trying to draw out the process of a problem, people often use, or mathematicians mostly use, visual representations. And I think we all need to develop the visual areas of our brain. So we often get said, or people say to us when we start with a competition, we are mathematicians, we can't think creatively, therefore we don't know whether this competition is for us or maths and art. How do you combine that? But we found that there's a need amongst the learners as well to become more creative. And on the screen at this stage is a quote of one of our grade 12 learners from the Eastern Cape that said, learners with a more creative way of learning struggle in class because the way mathematics is being taught is rigid and set in the past. Another learner said, at my school, we do not have the opportunity to nurture our skill in the arts, design, or mechanics and engineering. And this deprives learners like myself an opportunity to get a head start, to get the necessary foundation. So the learners are needing this as well, the combination of creativity in the maths class. Now, as I said, normally when we start out with a competition, everybody says, I'm a mathematician, I never could draw. And when we talk to the art people say, my goodness, I never could do maths. I dropped maths as soon as I can and quit at school, so I've stopped doing maths at all or completely. However, if we look at the following words, For example, the word lines. Do you think this belongs to maths or does it belong to art? What about the word curves? Maths or art? Shape, dimension, proportion, scale, perspective, size, parallel, mirror image, line of symmetry, and I can continue. I think that all of you will realize that as we look at these words, they're used both in maths and in art. So maybe the two are not so different from each other. And maybe we should bring in a little bit more creativity in our maths teaching. So what about using Kandinsky when you teach circle geometry? Who said that teaching this typical grade 11 circle geometry theorem, angle at the center of the circle is twice the angle at the circumference, has to be represented in a boring black and white drawing? If we look at this beautiful representation that a learner did call the sacred aloe, isn't this a beautiful way to represent that theorem? And then also to indicate that no matter where on the circumference of the circle you're looking at, the angles are exactly the same size. Why not really make geometry fun by using the parallel lines of Esther Mklangu? Why not explore maths in culture? And we can even draw with graphs. The most beautiful artworks, or some of the most beautiful artworks that are created, are actually used drawing graphs or using graphs. Now, in our workshops that we present to promote the maths and the art, our objectives are normally to make learning fun. So today as well, I'm just going to demonstrate or illustrate to you a little bit of what we do in a workshop. So there are obviously a whole host of different ideas, but we're just going to look at a few of them. So normally our workshop objectives would be to encourage maths and art people to work together to improve innovation and creativity. So we don't just invite mathematicians to our workshops, but also artists. And we would like them to get together to improve innovation and creativity. I think often in a staff room when people teach maths or teach art, they sit in separate sides of the staff room. They don't necessarily talk together or talk about work. They might talk about personal things, but not necessarily work. But I think that should change. We also want to inspire our participants in the workshop to see the links between maths and art and not as things that are completely separate. We also want to stimulate our participants to start looking differently at the world around them. So not just to look at maths and art differently, but actually to look at the world differently. And then we want to encourage participants to experiment more with examples in their own classes. And our workshop is really designed to illustrate a small section of combining maths and art, and then it's to stimulate people to go and do more in their classes. Now let's start with our presentation of maths and art. Now, first of all, a transformation. I want all of you to have a look around you in the room that you're sitting at right now. So transformation, first of all, is a general term for 4 specific ways to manipulate either a point, a line, or a shape. So changing a shape using, for example, a turn or what we call a rotation, a flip or a reflection, a slide or a translation, or a resize or an enlargement. Okay, I want you to have a look around you in the room that you're sitting at right now. Can you see any examples of things that have been turned or flipped, slide, or resize around you? Okay, maybe it's not so easy to think about it when you think initially, but I want to ask you, can you see a cupboard somewhere? Maybe you're in a room with a cupboard with doors to it. If you have a look at the 2 doors, the one handle faces one way and the other handle might face the other way. So isn't that an example of a reflection? So one door is reflected in another door. Have a look around you as well. Maybe you have two doors that are next to each other, but not necessarily the two handles facing towards each other, but put up differently or attached differently. Then you have a slide or a translation. There might be something smaller and something bigger in your room. If you're sitting at the dining room table today, you might see in the dining room chairs around the table an example of rotation. So the one chair faces one way and the other one is placed 90 degrees to that, so that is rotated. So examples of transformations and rotations in the room that you are sitting in. The original shape of an object is called a pre-image, and this is something that we use in maths, but it's also used in art. And the final shape of the position is called the image under transformation. It's something else I'd also like to combine today in our workshop is tessellations. Okay, so now what are tessellations? They are arrangements or tilings of shapes that cover a whole surface without overlapping or leaving any gaps. And as you can see from the example here in my picture, you can see that there is, let me just quickly go, sorry, there. Okay, if we look at, for example, this bit, sorry, oops, here, you can see the tiles at the bottom. We can see those bird pictures where they closely fit together, but they don't overlap. And I'm sure if you look around in your room now, you might have tiles on the floor or even tiles or different pieces of the roof that tile together without any gaps. And tessellations are not just man-made, they are also in nature. Have a look at those beautiful patterns on a lizard's leg or the patterns on a giraffe. Another example of tessellations is in the cells packed closely together on a leaf, or the hexagon shapes in honeycomb, the patterns on a pineapple, the tail of a chameleon, and then of course a tortoise shell. We also have man-made tessellations in the different buildings, beautiful buildings. Each face of the polyhedron of that top figure there, which is the big building in Epcot Center in Disney World, was designed to form, or from isosceles triangles that were designed to form a point. And the cladding that was used on that building was designed so that when it rains, no water pours off the sides onto the ground, but the water is all collected through 1-inch gaps in the facets into a gutter system. And I think that's quite nifty. And this is a beautiful building. So combining art and beauty, mathematics and engineering. I think this is a super example of what STEM can be used for. And then also solving the problem of collecting water, which then can be used in fountains and in the little rivers and all of the other things at Disney World. Now, tessellations, mathematicians have shown that only the following regular polygons can be used for tessellations: a triangle, a square, and a hexagon. Now, why only these regular polygons? Why do these? Now remember, a rectangle is not a regular polygon because its side lengths differ. A regular polygon is something that has equal side lengths. So why do only these regular polygons tessellate? Because their angles are a factor of 360 degrees. So triangle has an angle of 60, square 90, and hexagon 120, and those are all factors of 360 degrees. So when you pack them closely together, they form 360. Now, an artist that used these basic shapes in his tessellations, but also distorted them, was Escher. Maybe some of you are familiar with Escher's work, but let's have a look at one of the examples. Now, sometimes Escher changed the basic shapes. For example, starting out with a simple square. Now, by distorting these basic shapes, he changed them into animals, birds, and other figures, and the effect can be quite both startling and beautiful. So let's have a look at what he did. He, for example, would cut out a piece at the bottom of the object and then attach it to the top. So cut out a piece at the bottom of the square, attach it to the top, cut out a piece from the top, and attach it to the bottom. Then from the left, and from the right as well. And if you do this, you will get a pattern, and he also, of course, also decorated it, which then, when you tile it, fits closely together without leaving any gaps. And doing this, he could create the most beautiful drawings. Here, as I said, is just one example of what he did, called Escher's Horses. Unfortunately, it doesn't have such a creative name as the beautiful drawing that you see in front of you, but this is one of his very well-known pictures using tessellations. In our workshops, we then also play around with tessellations, and this is a bit difficult for everybody to collect and to get together, so I'm just going to show you an example that is so easy to do and something that you can have a look at later on. These presentations will also be shared via the platform, the STEMI platform, so you can go and try this at home. So you can start making your own beautiful tessellations by beginning with a simple geometric shape. Now we start with something on a cardboard square. So I don't know if you can still see the camera, on a cardboard square, and then we start out and we make a template of a little fish. And then this little fish is then cut out onto pieces of paper and then used to draw a tessellation or something similar to what Escher did. Now let me show you how to do it very simply. Take the piece of cardboard, and on the one side of the cardboard, you draw in a triangle. Now, if we just look back at the previous page, that triangle eventually is going to form the tail part, and then on the other side, the head of the fish. So you draw in a triangle, and then you cut it out and attach it to the left of the little square. And there's an illustration made up in GeoGebra as well. So it's cutting out the triangle on one side, attaching it on the other. Now, you take the same piece of paper or same little square, a cardboard square, and you draw the triangles at the bottom of this shape. It's also then cut out and attached to the top. And then you use the template. So what you've created now with your cardboard is a little template that you can use to cut out fishes on colored paper. And I'm just going to show you an example of what the learners did on one of our workshops when they pasted these altered fishes onto a piece of paper. So the exact same pattern that we had in the previous slide, cutting out a little fish and colored paper. It was magazine pages. So we always collect a lot of magazines and then cut out beautiful colored pieces of paper or little fishes on the colored pages. And then the other pieces that you can see here, the other little fishes, were just pieces of newspaper. And one can be very creative and use all kinds of different pieces of paper. So they used the little cardboard template as a template to cut out fishes in the magazine or the colored pages and on the newspaper pages. And then they pasted these, tiled them onto a colorful background. And one can use all different, you don't have to use that same type of fish. There's another example of a fish that was also made using a similar model with little cardboard shape. There are a few more and a few more at the bottom. The one on the left hand at the bottom, by the way, was made by one of my colleagues here at our center using beautiful wax print material, some shwe as well as foil and other plain cardboard paper. And then the one on the right was something that I got from the internet using beautiful colorful paper as well. So one can really create, using just these simple principles, some beautiful little shapes. However, what we want to do now is I want you to also play around with something that is a bit more complex. So we're going to look at hexagons. And now, first of all, we're going to look just first of all at something or how we can tessellate these hexagons. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And I'm just going to share my GeoGebra screen. Okay, so in the same way as we cut out pieces on a square and attached it to another side and then translated and tiled or made a pattern, you can do exactly the same with a hexagon. Now, first of all, do hexagons tessellate? So let's just first confirm that. Okay, there I've placed another piece, there I've placed another piece, and you can immediately see in those 3 pieces, they fit tightly together with no gaps. And if I place more pieces around the central one, you can see that they do tessellate. In other words, they fill the space completely without any gaps. So we can continue. Okay, but let's go back. In the same way, using the same basic shape, and you're going to create a basic shape with me just now on the camera, you then can change or cut out a piece, maybe cut out a triangle on the top and attach it here to the left-hand side. And once again, if you use a basic shape as a template and then use it to draw little shapes on another piece of paper, you can create a whole beautiful pattern using just that one small change to the hexagon. Now let's play around a little bit more, make a few more shapes, add a few more things. Let's put that outside there. Now I've got something that's not even recognizable as a hexagon anymore, but it makes the most beautiful pattern pieces that, without even drawing things on them like Escher and illustrating them a little further, you can already create a beautiful pattern, tiled pattern, with just a simple little transformation. Okay, let's go back. Right, now I hope everybody has a piece of colored paper or a piece of paper, any paper next to you. It doesn't have to be an A4. I'm going to now, together with you, construct a hexagon on a webcam. Now, whilst I might give a few more minutes for people to collect a piece of paper, let's just have a look at hexagons in general. Now, let's see if anybody knows how you can create, or what popular sports item do you think contains a regular hexagon? Well, I hope some of you knew that a soccer ball, yes, I know it contains pentagons as well, but a soccer ball contains hexagons, and there's lots of theories about that, but also one of the facts that when you tessellate them together, it actually forms a nice round, or a very almost round object. Now, where else would you find hexagons? Maybe not in the room as you're looking around you now, but for example, in a honeycomb. Bees use honeycomb or use hexagon shapes when they create their honeycombs. And the reason why we suspect is because it uses the least amount of wax to create the largest volume that honey can be stored in. So very practical. Pencils as well use hexagons. If you have a look at a pencil from the side, it's got a hexagonal shape. Now, I wonder if you can think of a reason why. Now, I think there are also quite a lot of reasons, and I think one of the first ones is maybe to be able to pack them very efficiently. If you think of how nicely hexagons tessellate, to pack them very efficiently into a small enough container. But I think it was also a practical reason. A round pencil would obviously slip or slide off a surface more easily, whereas a pencil that is hexagonally shaped won't. Nuts and bolts also use hexagons. The tool edges find it easier to grip an hexagonal edged bolt, and that means that more torque can be transferred to the bolts. Okay, so everybody ready? I hope everybody's got a piece of paper. Let's do this together. I'm going to open up my camera now, and I hope all of you can see this piece of orange paper here. Now, when you have a rectangular shaped piece of paper as I have here, how do you get a square? I think this is a relatively easy exercise. You literally normally, now remember, getting a square without using a ruler or a protractor, you could simply just fold this side over here to get a square. So that's easy. Now, why does this produce a square? Let me just use this page here on which I've drawn a line to make it easier. Why does this produce a square? Because if you look at it, you are using the one side to get another equal side there. And then you use your scissor to cut off the extra piece. So, and that way creating a square. Okay, now we fold it over an isosceles triangle. Okay, so getting a square, that was easy. How are we going to change this square into a hexagon? And if you're unsure of it, there's lots of different ways on the internet to do it. I'm just going to demonstrate one simple way. And I'm going to do this nice and slowly. So I want you to fold back your square and then keep the flat or the folded side towards you, and then fold this triangle over again. So we're going to fold it in half. So making those two edges meet up, we're going to fold it in half. Okay, open it up, and now use a pen and make just a little mark at the bottom. It just makes it easier to see when you're going to fold again. Now, we're going to fold over this side as well. So we're going to now fold this sharp edge here towards the top of the triangle. But you're not going to fold it through completely. You're just going to fold that edge there to make a little mark. And then you can use your pen to add in a little mark there. There we are. Okay, fold it open again so that mark is on the back. Now we're going to fold this again. So we're going to fold over that mark on that same edge towards the top, the apex of this triangle. So we're going to fold. So there's the apex of the triangle. I'm folding it over again. So make sure, as with all origami, of course, the more accurate your folds and the nicer your folds, the more accurate your product is going to be at the end. Now this time, once again, don't rub it down all the way, just press the crease at the top here. Okay, give everybody a chance to get there. Okay, now open it up again. We can make another little mark there, and then you can use a ruler, or if you're good at a freehand sketch, to just draw a line from that mark to the center fold. Right. Now what we want to do is we want to fold over this triangle again. So now keep your finger here at the bottom where you made that first mark at the center of the bottom side of the triangle. And you're going to fold it from there. So press it down a little bit to make it easier. And then fold it over so that that mark of yours there reaches that line that you drew there. So fold it over and now completely fold that side there. Fold it down. And if you've worked very accurately, if you now turn it over, so you folded it, now we turn it over, and then we fold this side. So where that fold is there, we're going to fold it on there. And if you fold it accurately, now, when you fold over that side there, these two sides should match up as well. So these two sides here match up when you fold it on the side. Now you get something that looks a little bit like a flower. Now, once again, get your pen. And I want you to just make a little mark there. So at the tip of that page there, make a little mark there. And then transfer that mark to the back, and then go all the way around to the other side. So that when you turn it around, you have a mark on this side. Okay, there. And then on this side here, just make a mark where that page or that tip is there. The markings just makes it easier to draw a line. Now, taking up your ruler again, you join that point there, you draw a line straight across. Like that. Okay, we're almost done. All that's left now is to use a pair of scissors and to cut across. Yeah. So we're going to cut off that piece there. Now, if you don't have a pair of scissors nearby, all you need to do is you can just fold. So you just fold that piece back to make a fold line there so that you can still see that line. So if you don't have a pair of scissors, that's okay. Just fold that over on the line that you drew there. And when you open this up, voila, there we have a perfect hexagon. A regular shaped hexagon, which means what? All the side lengths are the same. And what does the hexagon consist of? I'm just going to put this one here. I've drawn a few lines to make it a little clearer. All the side lengths are equal. So if we look, for example, here, this side length there, it's the same as that length there, the same as that one, the same as that one. So what we've managed to do here is we have managed to draw 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equilateral triangles. And this is what a hexagon consists of, 6 equilateral triangles. And those 6 equilateral triangles, one can then, for example, work with learners a whole lot of questions regarding this. For example, what are the sizes of the angles? 60 degrees, the 60-degree angles all add up to 360. So the triangles all tessellate as well, and a whole lot of maths. One can then use your basic template, as I illustrated just now, and cut out sections from the top and add it to the bottom to make those beautiful patterns as we saw. So let's just demonstrate that. I've cut out a triangle piece from the top, and by adding it to another side there, I can create another pattern piece, but you can also attach it there. So there are a huge amount of possibilities of what you can do and then make the most beautiful patterns creating or using these hexagon squares. Okay, let's go back. Right. So questions that one can ask further questions about this, and to draw this back into your maths class. What is the shape of the triangle surrounding the midpoint of the regular hexagon? As I've already said, learners can then measure the angles, measure the side lengths. How do you determine the area of a hexagon? Maybe this is a bit more complex. Something that you could ask your learners, how would you determine the area? And this, once again, very useful. One of the biggest problems that learners have is actually working out an area of an object that they can't see the height of. So to demonstrate or to illustrate for them that where to get the height of the triangles. And then do you need to work out the area of each triangle, or can you simply work out 1 multiplied by 6, etc.? So working out the total area of the hexagon that you created. There's also a lovely, but I think I won't have time, beautiful thing in GeoGebra using this link here that you can go to try and explain that a little bit better to your learners. I think there's still just a little bit of time left for questions. Ellie, I don't know how my time is doing.
You're doing fine, Katharina. You still have about 5 minutes, but we can move on to questions if you're done.
Okay, sorry. Right, great. Let me first ask, is there anybody who has any questions or maybe something that was in the chat? I haven't had a chance to look at the chat right here.
There was only one request actually, is whether you can share that illustration, how to make the hexagon. There are some people, some teachers that would like to do it with their learners.
Okay, great. Yes, I will. I think that the recording of this presentation will also be shared most probably on the STEMI channel. So then people are welcome to have a look at that. Also, if you go to YouTube and you simply just type in constructing a hexagon or folding a hexagon with paper, there are a whole lot of different examples. This, as I said, is just one. When I did this with some learners, the learners actually Googled it and they came up and they said to me, ma'am, I think there's another way to do this and my way is easier. And some of them came up with other creative ways, which is also possibly something that one could throw out to your learners. So ask your learners, how else could you fold a hexagon? And then also, as I said, with regards to when you fold a square, which is something easy, and a hexagon is more complex, how exactly, with the square it's easy, you try to get the two side lengths the same. How do you get a hexagon? And that would be easy, of course, if you know how to divide a page into 6 equal parts. So that's another more complex question that one could also throw out at learners or children or even adults, students.
For those you've logged in earlier at 9 o'clock, there was a video playing, and they showed a lot of the artworks that was submitted by the learners. I'm fortunate I have your calendar on my desk, so it's I can look at every day while I'm working. Have you made a decision on this year's winners?
Thank you. Yes, Ellie, we've finished the judging process. What we're doing currently now is we're asking teachers to post in the final artwork. So the final round judging has already taken place, but we need to verify that the artworks are actually authentic and hand drawn by the learners themselves. So we ask them to post the artworks to us, the final round of artworks. And then soon after that, there will be a prize giving, as well as the winners will be announced on social media and our Facebook platform. For people who want, as I said at the beginning, once again, just a bit more information on the math art competition. So our math art competition runs every year at the beginning of the year from January. We start in January with the promotion. February, we do our workshops, but the actual entries open at the beginning of March every year. So the 1st of March, and then learners have right through March and April to complete their artworks and then to put them into, or to enter them into the competition. For the competition, we have a specific math art website where the learners then enter online. We designed the website to be data light, so learners don't need a lot of data. They can take a picture of their artwork with their cell phone cameras. And then there are 3 questions that we ask them just to try and drill down a little bit more into which maths they used to create their artwork. So for example, this year's theme was beautiful mathematics. And the learners had to think of what beautiful mathematics meant to them. And if you look at the video, or as Elias mentioned, there was a video playing in the general session this morning about, or with some of the artworks in them. You can also see the different artworks from different years, just a selection of them. But we get hundreds of these artworks in from all over South Africa. All grade 7 to grade 12 learners enter, and they are then judged in the different categories. So for us, it's been absolute learning experience with learners, teachers, just seeing how people think about it. Christoph in his talk yesterday referred to not just being maths and art, but learners also used this platform to express their frustrations with the current world happenings with the pandemic and the coronavirus. They used the artworks to express their frustrations with mathematics. Learners also use the artworks to express their joy in doing mathematics. And we have beautiful artworks where learners really drill down into complex things such as, which is not done at school, fractals, the Kuramoto model of mathematics, synchronization of things, the Fourier transformation. So lots of more complex mathematics as well, which then obviously stimulates learners to think more deeply about mathematics. So beautiful artworks that we really enjoy, and we enjoy what learners do. Also something that we've really learned from the artists, I think we as mathematicians don't necessarily look so deeply into the things around us, but artists learn to really look at something. If you want to draw something, you must really look at it and study it. And this is something that we've learned from the artists as well. So I don't know if any of my colleagues who are in the meeting would like to say something or just unmute themselves.
Yeah, Ellie, Karin, thank you very much. Wonderful, presentation. And clearly there's so much more to support STEM education. But this particular context is, I think, very well, showcased. And I just wanted to mention, I put it in the chat as well, that, people can actually go to our YouTube channel. There are very number of other things linked to math art as well that they can access just for reference purposes. Thanks, Karin.
There's a question by Flora Olivier. Flora, you can go ahead. Just unmute yourself.
I just saw in the chat here was a question that popped up now on my screen. I think Flora maybe just wanted to give a comment. So it's interesting as tessellation starts early. It's from Emma. Question: does this mean intermediate phase cannot participate in the competition? I hear it's from grade 7 and up. Emma, you're right. At this stage, the competition is just from grade 7 and up. If we have a sponsor that will help us to extend the competition to the earlier grades, then we can do that. So at this stage, if any of you know of any sponsors that are willing to help us sponsor this competition with primary school learners, then we can also consider doing that. But we started with the grade 7s as they fall into the phase of the senior school. But yes, it's not at this stage something that we are doing. Or the intermediate phase is not in the competition as yet. Are there any
other questions or comments? Carrie, one of the objectives of the conference is to extend the reach. Can you tell us more about how many learners are participating?
Well, we've had quite a number of learners this year. We had so almost 400 people registering for the competition, learners from all over South Africa, which was a little less than we expected, but we had quite a few challenges with the pandemic, and a lot of our learners are the junior learners in the grade 8 and 9 sections, which we all know that they didn't attend school every day. But from our previous years, our competitions were up to more than 700 learners per competition. So the reach of the competition, it's a bit difficult to judge. So the final entries that we have in the competition are obviously less. What a lot of schools and districts do is they have in-house competitions. So the teachers don't enter all the learners into the competition. They would give this as a project, the competition as a project to their learners, especially the grade 8s and 9 teachers in arts and culture are often looking for projects for learners. So they will link up with a maths teacher and have all their grade 8 to 9 learners enter. And then they only select, after their in-house or in-school competition, the best learners. We encourage everybody to take part, but we find that schools select learners and then enter only the best. We also have various art centers that help learners throughout the country, also entering their top students into the competition. So the reach, at this stage, we have entries from all over South Africa, but the numbers, the exact precise numbers of all the people who take part is a bit difficult to say.
I wonder if I can just add something to that. The competition is completely online. I don't know if you've mentioned that, Karin. It's important because we fully integrate technology to make it easy to submit, you know. So this is definitely forward-looking. Clearly, it was affected quite heavily by the pandemic, you know, for last year and this year. So we hopefully will have a much better situation and participation and reach in the future from 2022 onwards.
Yes, now our numbers for the Mathematics Olympiad and the Math Challenge also dropped because of the pandemic. So we hope that things will normalize by next year, hopefully. Any further questions or comments before we wrap up? Kareem, many thanks for your presentation. I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. If I look at the comments, it's clear that the delegates enjoyed the session. So many thanks for that. We can now end this session, so you can go back to the main room. In other words, use the link that you used earlier this morning at 9 o'clock. Go back to the main route. I'm going to end this session, and then there will be further sessions where the links for room 1, 2, and 3 will stay exactly the same, but the program director will now go into further. Many thanks.
Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you. Thank you once again, everybody, for joining in.
Dear Mono.
Hi, and Nico here. I just want to hear from Karine and room 3. Would you give rights to Tanya and Chris to be able to share? I will be the chair in the next session.
Also, if Nico, I sent you a file which was supposed to be uploaded to everyone. I'm not too sure if I can actually do this. Let me just try. Sorry.
Tanya, I received the kitchen science PDF.
Yeah, but that was supposed to go to basically everything. Room 3, can you just let me know if I'm going to post it now, if it will stay for those people who are coming in or not?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, Nico and Tanya. I see they made me a co-host, but I think room 3 host, I'm not able to make you a co-host. And I'm not sure whether you'll be able to share.
Yeah,
So,
Chris needs to share. Sorry, that is no, I mean, so Chris needs sharing rights, and it would be good if I can get sharing rights as well, because I want, if there's still time, I want to share a little video clip. So if we can get this sorted out, please.
all right. I think room 3, are you here? Can you hear us? Okay, I see that you've been made co-host, Tanya. I don't know about Chris.
No, Chris needs to be co-host, but that's fine. It's okay, don't worry. And I'm just uploading it to everyone. I'm not too sure if it's going to stay on, hopefully. So I shared a document with everybody, and I'll need to share something else with everybody.
Yeah. Tanya, I think maybe we just need to wait a few minutes before you share when the session starts at 15:15 in 5 minutes. So people who join after this now won't be able to see
it. Okay,
that.
no, that's for sure. Yeah, I can share it later. No worries, no worries. I just wanted to see if it's actually working. But you can see the file, is it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. And I'll just hope that it's not going to rain, because otherwise this will influence my my voice level. Okay, I just need to check. Camera 1 is working. And oops. Oh, Chris, you're sharing. Super, great.
Okay. Happy.
Chris?
Yes.
Since you are now co-host, I won't be
Okay.
able to run that poll. You'll have to do it.
No problem.
Oh, but I can see the polls now, so I think they changed.
Okay, got it. Thank you. I'll run it.
Chris, can you see my background, whatever?
Not at the moment.
Oh, okay. So I tried as just like you. I tried the background, and it does absolutely not work. So
Yeah. Okay. As long as we are aware of that, and we'll just tell people. Okay. So Nico, whenever you want us to, we ready to start? I know it's still a few minutes early.
Yeah, it's still early. We will start exactly at 10:15. I will share that room link just now. Just hold on. Just while we're not starting yet, Chris and Tanya, I'll warn you at 10 minutes before the session should end.
I just want to move forward with the slide and then back again. I just want to just double check, so don't worry that it's changed.
Chris, if you put it in presenter mode, because right now you've got, obviously you can see the slides on the left-hand side, but if you click on the little presenter button on the bottom right, just next to the numbers, it looks like a movie screen that you pull down a little bit more. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, got it.
Then it'll make it full screen.
It should be full screen. Because
Right
I'm
now-
using your screen.
Right now, we're just seeing it's in the view that we see before you go into presenter mode. We can see all the slides on the left, and we can see the preview on the right. So
No, I've got it in.
and that's unusual. Click on slideshow on the top. Right on the top, it's got play. There's like a little play button in the red section.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, click there.
You see, now it's coming back to the full screen, so you should have it.
Oh, no, but we're not seeing that. So maybe you're not sharing that particular version. So
Okay.
what you need to do is then you
Okay,
exit.
there we
this
are.
screen
Check you
share.
that one then.
That's the one. And now if you
Okay.
move your mouse cursor to the bottom left-hand corner of the screen and click
Mhm.
on it, then you probably see arrows. There we go.
Yep.
So you can either click on the arrows moving left and right, or try pushing your arrows on your keyboard.
Okay, no, that's what I normally do. So
Okay, there we
Okay,
go.
thank you.
That's much better.
thank you.
Welcome back, guys, to room 3. I'm your chair for this particular session. My name is Nico Swartz, and I work for ESCOM Expo for Young Scientists as the provincial coordinator in the Free State. So yesterday I heard Dr. De Munsa talking about a very chilly Pretoria. We are expecting a temperature of -9 during the course of the night. So if you want to think about it, we are actually quite colder than Pretoria. Without further ado, we've already utilized a little bit of the time that Chris had. Let me quickly just introduce our speakers. So we've got Dr. Tanya Reinhardt from the Science, Technology and Education Center at the UKZN, or as we affectionately know her as Dr. T. And then we've got from ESCOM Expo for Young Scientists, we've got Chris McCartney. Today's paper that they'll present to us is, let me just open here, Toys from Trash and Using Online Platforms to Prepare Learners for Competitions. I would just like to request that all participants or attendees please direct their questions in the chat, and we will address these once Chris and Tanya have completed their demonstration. I hand over to you, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nico. So, okay, doesn't want to advance. So as you indicated, Tanya and I will be jointly presenting this paper. I will start and then swap over to her. But the general overview is we'll be looking at the sort of challenges with online workshops and then She will take us through a hands-on activity, like we would generally do with a group of learners online. And I will then link it to doing a technology activity if learners wanted to do that for ESCOM Expo. We would also look at a couple of examples of other online workshops and how one could implement various strategies like using videos or pre-recorded demonstrations to integrate with online workshops. We'll also look at a couple of tips and tricks, and we'll wrap up with a question and answer session. So traditionally, we as Expo in particular have been looking at face-to-face interventions when we want to prepare learners for any type of competition, in our case, particularly with the Expo. But obviously, since COVID-19 last year, we've all, I'm sure, had to shift a lot of our interventions to online platforms, both for training as well as for our science fairs. In our case, we've chosen to use the Zoom platform, but obviously there's many other online platforms which could be used to achieve a similar result. And we've had a long-term partnership with STEC at UKZN, where Tanya's been involved with promoting Expo for many years. And we just felt it was a good opportunity to further collaborate and look at how we could develop activities that we could run online. So what we're going to be doing today is largely trying to look at how we can engage with learners, especially younger learners, and make them excited, want to get involved in doing these kinds of things. But in doing so, it does come with quite a few challenges. Obviously, many of you will have already experienced problems with Zoom etiquette, where people might have their microphones on and you're then picking up background noise. People may be having their cameras on and animals walking in or people doing funny things on that. Learners in particular liking to annotate or doodle on the screen. Becomes more difficult the larger your group size in some cases. People dropping off the things and coming in late. And then it's also with people using pseudonyms, it also does raise a few problems, which I'll address later. And then obviously, many of us experience poor connectivity at various stages. And that really, can dampen the enthusiasm. So I'm now going to hand over to Tanya, where she's going to take us through a simple hands-on activity as though she would be doing this with a group of learners. And remember, this is aimed primarily at younger learners, this particular activity, but we can do it for any age and stage, and we've done similar activities for teachers as well. Over to you, Tanya.
Thanks, Chris, and good afternoon. Oh, sorry, good morning, everybody. I'm already like in afternoon mode. And welcome. And what we usually do here is, or what I've got to show you is usually how I would run this activity. And you can see that Chris is already sharing a slide. So one of the aim is to basically show them the steps up front so that they can basically prepare themselves so that they know what I'm doing later on. And also if they want, I can share later on the slides with them so that they can redo the activity. So what you will need is a piece of cardboard, and this is just from an ordinary box, and what a ruler, simple ruler, and a pen. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw on it, and we 7.5 centimeters by 15 centimeters rectangle, and we're going to cut it out. Sorry, Chris, can you just go back, please?
Sorry, Tanya, I wasn't sure whether you were able to.
No, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. No worries, no worries.
My apologies.
No worries.
People could see your thing. Sorry.
Yeah, it is a bit difficult today. It must be the weather here. So then you take a straw, 8 centimeters, and cut it into 2 pieces of 8 centimeters each. You're going to attach it, and the important part is that you're going to attach it in such a way that they are parallel to each other. So not at a skewed angle, because otherwise your car is going to move into different directions. And then you need a balloon, and we're going to snip off the thick end, the rubber end of the balloon. Thanks for sharing, Chris. And thanks for sharing, Chris.
I'm stopping sharing.
Yeah. Okay. So and I'll just need to go to speaker view, and you can see I'm currently using my laptop camera. So which is, of course, you cannot see what I'm doing here. So that's why I basically have a second camera that I've already prepared that points me directly onto my table. So you can basically see what I'm doing. As you can see, my face is cut off because my face is not very interesting. So the main part is basically to focus on it. So if you ever run online workshops, one of the important things is that you need to lay out your material, because and you have to spend some time in the preparation. And I've just noticed I didn't spend some time in the preparation, so I forgot my bottle cap, which I just had to dash off just now to fetch it. So getting back, we're drawing a rectangle, which is 15 centimeters. So we just mark it here, 15 centimeters. So here we basically introduce one of the first skills to the learners is to learn how to use a ruler to measure distances. Okay, so then it's going to be 7.5 centimeters. Okay, so we're going to measure, we're going to draw a line. We're going to go up to 7.5 centimeters. 7.5 centimeters, and we're going to draw another line. So we're basically drawing our rectangle, which is not very nice because I'm in a rush. Okay, so here you can see there's my rectangle, 15 centimeters by 7.5 centimeters. So also, if you put it up on a presentation, it reminds you what you basically what you want to do. So if you forget a step, which sometimes happens, is by putting in these step-by-step instructions, it reminds me, oh, okay, so this is what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to cut my board out. Here we go. So that's the first step. Go. So there's my board. Now I've got my straw, and now I'm going to measure 8 centimeters. Okay. So 8 centimeters, I'm going to lay it right here on the floor, and I'm going to use my pen to just draw a line. And it sometimes helps if you have, so I'll make a mark, I'm going to cut it. So now I'm going to show you a trick of that you don't have to measure like the next piece. So what you can just simply do, you can simply take your straw and just hold it up against and cut it off at this part here. So you get 2 equal sized straw pieces. So this is where your axis is going to fit through. Okay, so now we want to have it parallel, and we've just learned about mathematics, about how you use words like parallel and so on in mathematics, but you can use it in your workshop. So parallel means as the same distance from the edges. Okay, so how can we achieve this? We can just measure, let's say, 2 centimeters from one side, 2 centimeters from the other side. Here we go. We're going to draw a line across. Here we go. And now we need some tape. Okay. So when you do this, it is always best to just prepare, and you know that you need a couple of tapes. It's always best to just prepare a couple of, pieces of tape. So I'll just do this. So I have them ready. You can also mention this to the learners so that if they don't have, one of these nice little dispensers for tapes, it is actually easier to just prepare some strips. Otherwise, it takes so long to just peel them off. Okay, so I'm going to place my one straw now on the line so that, and here you can see I'm using actually a camera with autofocus, so I can go closer up so that people can see what is actually happening. So here I've got my line, so I'm going to line it up like this. tape. There we go. And another piece of tape. Right. And you can explain if it doesn't work this first time, this is going to be a prototype. So they can always improve it. So then you're going to measure another 2 centimeters from the other side. Or you can just measure it from this straw to make it parallel, but I'm just going to use my straight edge. Okay, we're going to draw another line. Here we go. And now I have my second piece of straw. And of course, one of the problems is when you have background noises, you know, so you just need to make sure that you get rid of all the background noises. I would have to get rid of my husband, that is who's sitting right here next to me. Here we go. I'm going to make sure that it's straight, parallel. And this line, as I said, helps quite a bit. So it doesn't matter what kind of straw you're going to use. If it's a plastic straw, a paper straw, everything will work. Chris, if you can just share the presentation again. Chris?
I'm with you. Sorry, just give me a second.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, so what we also need to do is, here you can still see, we need to snip off the rubber end of the balloon. So here we go. We're going to snip off the thick end of the balloon. Okay, can you just advance to the next slide, please?
Getting there.
Okay, so in the next slide, we're going to continue with our car. So you insert the straw about 5 centimeters, and then you tape the balloon to the straw. And you need to make sure that that it's really tightly sealed. Okay. So then you tape basically the straw with a balloon onto your cardboard piece, and you need to make sure that it's basically in the middle. Okay. So you place the balloon towards the front, so about the center of the base, and then the straw sticks way out at the back, and it needs to be as straight as you can do it, okay? And then you're going to securely tape it in place. Then you use 2 skewers, and you're going to cut off 10 centimeters from the flat end, not the pointy end, okay? So remember, your skewers have got 2 ends, one flat, one pointy, and you do it again with the other skewer. So these ones are your axes for your car. And you save the pointy, you need the pointy bits for, to poke a hole through your wheels. In the next step, we're going to basically do the wheels. So you need a piece of cardboard, and you just need, a soda bottle cap, and then you're going to trace the outline of your soda bottle cap, 4 of them, and then you carefully cut them out. Okay, Chris, if you can just stop sharing. Okay, now I need to find the beginning. You see, this is why I said, and it's very funny, this is why I said you need always to be prepared, because otherwise you're going to look for the beginning of your tape, okay, especially if you have something like this and you can't find the beginning of your tape. This is what usually happens. Oh gosh, sorry guys. It's just, you do this in up front and everything works fine. But I promise you, in your presentation itself, you will find some challenges. Hands-on activities that you tried out, like always beforehand, they work fine. And just if it comes to the crunch, if you do the live workshop, things don't work. So this is why it's live, so that you can really see, we are not faking anything. Nothing is pre-recorded here. Okay, so straw, balloon, we're going to insert it. So you can see that I've pushed it quite far in. So this is about that much in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of wrap it tightly around the straw like this. And now I'm going to use a piece of tape and wrap it around. I hope that everybody can follow. It's just like this. But I'm going up, and if you, this is another thing that you always find with, you know, online workshops, that you have people that are unmuting themselves. Okay, right. So now in the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to tape our straw to the bases. So you can see I've placed it roughly in the middle, and I'm going to use a piece of tape, and I just make it as straight as possible. Okay, and I'm going to place the chassis onto it, hopefully securely. Okay, I'll just probably need a second piece of tape. Go. And we've got this here. Super. All right, so coming back to our little skewer here. So we can measure about 10 centimeters of our skewer. Remember, we are not measuring from the pointy tip. We are measuring from the flat tip. So 10 centimeters. What you also find is that what is quite interesting, and I find this a lot with, you know, when I run proper workshops, so pre-COVID workshops, that the children, they actually have difficulties in, you know, cutting things. So this is another great opportunity to learn them some specific skills, things like cutting out. Right, so here we've got, so we can do the same. If we want to have the same measure and we were too lazy to measure, we can just line them up and cut them through. And if you have like, oh, or you can just break it off. Here we go. So this is going to be your axis, all right? And we're going to push them through here. So they're going to fit through your straws. Now, in the last step, what we are going to do is we are going to trace our wheel. So again, piece of cardboard. This is just an ordinary bottle cap. And you're going to trace the wheel. Okay, and cut it out. And as you can see, this is material that is not expensive. So maybe the balloons, maybe the skewers, but maybe you can find some other alternatives in terms of skewers and so on. And luckily, I've already prepared all my 4 wheels. So while you're still busy cutting, I can continue and show the others what comes next. So you're going to mark the center of your wheel. Okay, right? So just place it as much in the center as possible. And then you're going to take the pointy tip and you're going to push it through your wheel, just like this. So that's 1. Two. Whoops. 3. And 4. So now in the last step, what we're just going to do is we're just going to attach the wheels onto our skewers like this. Okay, so that's 1. All right. That is, whoops, number 2. Very important is that they need to freely rotate. So just watch out. So again, push in, fits through your axis, sorry, and then you're going to attach the other side. There we go. Okay, and ready is our car. Chris, can you just quickly share the next slide, please?
Sure.
Okay, so question of course is, in which direction will your car move? So what we're basically going to do is we're going to blow some air into the balloon through the straw at the back, okay? Put our fingers onto the end, okay? And so we're basically filling up with potential energy, and then we're going to let loose. So, and we can start now sharing a poll, and you have to decide in which direction will your car move. If we can please have the poll. So this is another way of how you can engage with the learners, by launching a poll. So you can see if people pay attention, if people are bored, if they're already asleep, or if they understand what you want to do. Please, guys, if you see the poll, just click on it. Okay, and we got some responses. Okay, it will. Okay, so we have a close thing. So we have 11 people already responding. So it will move in the direction of the straw. It will move in the direction of the balloon. So we'll just have to see, and I'll just make some space here. Okay, 16. Come on, guys. There are 50 people in the room, and believe me, it is. You know, nobody is going to vouch. You can answer whatever you want. Nobody can point you because it's all you know, with no names and so on. We can just see the numbers, and which is interesting. So we have 20 people. Just give it another minute, 30 seconds. Okay, so 20 people have an opinion. 30 people don't, which is a little bit, oh no, 21. Okay, so 21, 22. Guys, as I said, you can answer the question. So it's fairly close. So 36, well, people think that it's actually moving in the direction of the straw. 64 think that it will move in the direction of the balloon. So basically, you're basically now making a prediction. And this is also what the learners, it's quite interesting to show to learners or other participants, even teachers, and I hope that we still have some teachers here, to teachers here. Okay, I think time's up. So if you can just share the results. So we have, I hope that everybody can see this. So we have 24 people who had an opinion. 33% said it will move in the direction of the straw, and 67 said that it will move in the direction of the balloon. And I'll just stop the sharing. And Chris, if you can just stop sharing your screen, and we'll just test it out. So, as I said, you fuel your car. I'm going to put my finger on it, and we'll just see how it goes. So people, if you say that it's moving in the direction of the balloon, you are absolutely right. But what you also might have noticed is that the wheels weren't kind of, we're a little bit wobbly. And I know that Chris has got some ideas of how you can improve the wheels and what else you can use to do the wheels. Chris, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, Tanya. I'm just going to share my screen again. Okay, so Tanya's taken us through the process of making a very simple little model. Obviously, because of time, we wanted to choose something that we could do in a short space of time. But the really important thing about this is to initially just get the learners excited and wanting to get involved in doing something. Ideally, when we run these simple workshops, the learners get, or once they've registered, get a list of all the resources that they need so that they can actually follow along and do it themselves. But we can also do this as an introduction to doing a engineering type project, which could be entered into the ESCOM Expo. And obviously there they're going to be looking at different things like, you know, the variables. And if we look at, for instance, the wheels as a variable that could be changed, we could look at using different types of materials or resources for making different wheels. So I'm just going to stop this presentation for a second, and I'm just going to switch over to my camera so that I can actually show you what I'm doing. And I just need to start my video here. And I want to, oops, for some reason it's not picking up my other camera now. Sorry, and you said always got a problem when you're doing things live. You've got to sure you've got the right things working. So I'm also using a dual camera system. And in this case now, I'm wanting to look at my, my desktop. And for the life of me, I can't actually see my desktop at the moment. So I'm not sure if anybody else can.
Chris, we can. So you're on, and we can see your prototypes.
Okay. All right. So I'm just trying to get so that I can actually see what's happening. I just want to see. Okay, it's not helping.
So this is also the problem. Sometimes if you have too many cameras and so on, and depending on your setup. So when we usually do this, Nico is usually our host and so on. So we can always you know, look at the cameras, we know the setups and so on. But sometimes in different Zoom spaces, things work differently. So Chris, but we can see your, we can.
No, that's fine. I'm just pinning myself here. Okay, so you can now see my desktop, and all I want to now illustrate to you is how we could look at using different wheel options to improve the car, but also to look at it as a variable that could be changed if doing a simple engineering type project. So Tanya had a little car made of cardboard. I've got mine here, and again, I've also got an autofocus high resolution camera, which I'm using for these kinds of workshops. And instead of using cut out wooden wheel, cardboard wheels, I've used simple bottle tops on that one. Okay, now I could, if I like, change the size of the wheels and have a look. Does that actually affect how, or the speed that or the distance that the balloon car will travel? For various workshops, we've also looked at using different wheels. For instance, adding attachments like tire chains to wheels prevent wheels from sliding as much on a slippery road. And for those purposes, we made up little axles with wheels with chains around them. I've made others up using little plastic tires. And we ran a very nice little workshop where we used shallow trays filled with water and then left those to freeze in the fridge or in the freezer overnight, and then used them to look at different angles of slippery roads and how you could now improve the design or add things to your wheels to stop the slide or to improve the grip. Now, a lot of you will also say, but you know, where do we get these resources? As Tanya's already mentioned, we try as far as possible to use readily available resources that you would normally just throw away, and hence the title of the talk, Toys from Trash. So just a couple of other ideas. Instead of just using bottle caps, things that you could also use are cotton reels. Cotton reels make really nice wheels. And yeah, I've just put them on a small piece of dowel, but you could attach them solidly and then put an axle through if you wanted to. Yeah, I've used some offcuts of electricians' tubing, and I've just put a cork down the center to which I can push my dowel in or my skewer in, and those make really nice wheels as well. You could also cut little wooden wheels if you've got a hole saw, or if you don't have that, then you can just take a dowel and you can just cut off sections of different sized dowels if you want to do that. You can even use large buttons. So a large button like that actually works really well as a wheel. And lastly, for the purpose, actually two more I'm going to show you. This is just a little from a bobbin from a sewing machine. Whoops, dropped it. And those as well you can use with different size little dowels. If you can see it clearly there. And these little bobbins also work really well as small pulleys if you want to do make up pulleys for mechanical advantage. And then lastly, I want to show you one that I've made up out of old CDs, or you use DVDs. And yeah, I've used a bottle cap from a cool drink bottle, which I've glued to the center, and then again just inserted my skewer stick. And these are really nice for illustrating different variables. So as we've already said, you can look at an engineering type project where a learner could do the basic prototype, just like Tanya's already indicated, and then they could look at setting different criteria that they want to meet, that the car needs to meet. And they could also do a scientific investigation looking at, for instance, different types of wheels as a variable that they change in, or they keep the same size or type of wheel and they look at maybe inflating the balloon to different amounts or using different types of balloons. So there's a whole lot of things that learners could do to do a very basic, simple experiment. And as we've said before, you know, we want to get as many learners as possible across the spectrum to be involved in doing competitions and entering Expo. And when they first start out, it's not necessary that they do these huge, complicated investigations, but they can start with very simple little activities, and these can be built on over time, and you can always integrate these. And these are also ideal ways of getting learners excited about getting involved in online activities, but you could also do them face-to-face. So I'm now going to hand back over to Tanya, where she's just going to share maybe a couple of ideas for other activities that could be done as well.
Thanks, Chris. And yes, there are some ideas that I would like to share. And Chris, yeah, okay.
I'm getting there.
Okay. Here we go. So what you can see is I want to demonstrate some other ideas. And my speciality is like kind of kitchen chemistry. Those things that you have lying around in your house that you might find in your kitchen. And Chris, if you can just stop sharing, and I can just show them two of the things that that they can do. So this is something very simple. Just a CD, some press sticks, and this is one of these fancy bottle caps that you find on you know, your sports drink. You can also use just a normal bottle cap with a hole in there, where you poke a hole in, and then you put a balloon over. So what you can do is now you can demonstrate things like friction. So as you can see, this one is hardly moving, but if you're going to blow it up, the balloon, you can basically see, and I hope that you could see, and now this is when the technology kind of so you can close it. This is why I prefer the Gatorade one, and then you open it and you can see that it's now moving fairly easy. So you can basically get an investigation on which surface, in fact, this kind of concept works. How does it reduce friction? So you can talk about lots of physical properties of this. And another very simple thing is acid and bases. So what I've got here is just simple red tea that I'll just brewed up. You can use also grape juice, so blue grape juice and so on. So what I've got here is just simple acid, okay? I use a straw. You can use a pipette, but a straw is usually readily available. So you dunk it in, you put your finger on it, you move it across, and you can kind of let loose and you transfer it just like a pipette. So you don't have to use fancy pipettes. You can use a straw. You can see that the color slightly changed, but not really that much. So let's see, I've got some washing powder in here, which is supposed to be a base. Let's see what's going to happen when we add now our red juice. And you can see that it's got this nice blue color, bluish green color. And again, it's a very simple way to teach just what is an acid, what is a base, how can we determine it, using very, very simple household material. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload a document with some other ideas, which you can download. So it's a PDF file, which shows you some of the costs. Unfortunately, the costs were in 2018, so I hope that it hasn't changed much. So just to give you some ideas, things that you can do in your classroom, things that you can also do online and share it with other kids. And I'm going to hand back to Chris.
Great stuff. Thank you. So really all we've got left to do for this presentation now is just to have a look at a couple of tips and tricks that Tanya and I and our colleagues have picked up when doing these kinds of workshops. Obviously, you've already seen that we've been using multiple cameras when working with this, because this does allow you to have two different views of what you're doing. And it really is worthwhile investing in a high resolution webcam, which you can use for these kinds of activities as well. You've got to be careful of things like not only background sounds if people are unmuted, but also should you have someone working, for instance, with the sound system in the background or using an external microphone, sometimes you're picking up feedback from these, so just be careful of that. Something we only picked up today was when I tried to set up my virtual background, which we were asked as presenters to use. A virtual background doesn't work with your desktop. It's fine for a speaker view, but when it comes to trying to do a live demonstration of stuff, you certainly can't use a virtual background for that. And then where you've got complicated things, or maybe where you've got something that you've set up beforehand and you want to be able to show it to save time, it's really worthwhile pre-recording videos of your experiments. This also serves as a backup. So should for whatever reason your experiment not want to work on the day, and Tanya's already indicated that it's sod's law, very often when you want to do something live, for whatever reason it doesn't want to work, then at least you've got it as a backup. Another activity but that we haven't demonstrated here is to use breakout rooms. And Zoom is really nice for that, where if you've got, for instance, as an example, participants at different levels, you might want to put the learners into one breakout room and maybe the adults or teachers into a different breakout room, and then come together again in your main room or a plenary session. It's also worthwhile engaging the learners or your participants by using polls. And normally we would run a number of different polls looking at the answers to questions or different activities. And then it's also very worthwhile to obviously register your learners beforehand, or your participants. Nowadays with the POPI Act, we've got to be careful in terms of getting permission from people to actually have them register. But the problem with the Zoom registration forms, although it's very simple to use, you can only indicate a required field, but unfortunately you can't have data validation like you would do if you had set it up in a Excel spreadsheet, for instance, where you could have only prescribed data being entered. So sometimes people do enter the wrong information in these forms, but it's still worthwhile exercise to do. And then really, if you're working with large groups, it really does pay to have a co-host or a host to assist managing the large group, especially if you've set up a waiting room and you need someone to monitor that as people maybe drop off and wanting to come back in, or people who join the session late. And then it's also worthwhile, if you're in an area where you've got poor connectivity, to have a backup internet connection, or have someone else, your co-host, who has got your copy of your presentation that can carry on with it while you're trying to resolve your connection problem. But it's often worthwhile just investing in a small uninterrupted power supply to ensure that you've got power to run these if you can. And then obviously you need to just consider the roles of the presenter and the host, who's going to be running the polls, who's going to be doing, whatever. So thank you very much. I think we spot on our time. Thank you very, very much for coming to this presentation, and I'll hand back over to Nico for the Q&A session.
Thanks so much, Dr. T and Chris. Yes, you are well in time, so that allows us a little bit of interaction from the participants. So if you have any questions.
Sorry. If I can just chime in, if you're interested to see how I've done, so as Chris mentioned, it is sometimes quite important, especially if you do like a complicated experiment, to pre-record it. So there are different ways, and I know that Steve knows all the ways of how to do this. So he's a real, gadget buff. So you can use things like your webcam. You can use different programs to basically screen capture it. If you want, if there's still time, I would quite like to share one of my experiments that I've done, pre-recorded experiments, if that is okay.
Yes, Dr. T, we've got a few minutes.
Okay, super. Let me just share, and I hope that's going to work. No slideshow. I don't know why there's, here we go. So this is basically just your simple vinegar and bicarbonate experiment. And basically what this demonstration shows are two ways. So one way is the classical, how do we know that there's pressure building up inside your bottle? So you can use a bottle and a cork, and I've pre-recorded this. So you drop your bicarbonate in, you have put a cork on, and you wait for a while, and it should go pop eventually. Yeah, that was okay. So here you can see it flying. So this would be your low-key kind of thing. And what we also have in the Science Center is a pressure sensor. So what I basically have here is so I could basically also then demonstrate how to use a pressure sensor. So again, if you pre-record it, especially if an experiment is over time, it is actually advisable to pre-record and then just cut it in bits and pieces. Okay, so, and I know that there are questions.
Yeah, the chat is blowing up. I haven't seen many questions as yet. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, or if you rather want to pose it directly to the presenters, you can just indicate by raising your hand, and I'll give you the floor.
Nick, I see Steve has got his hand raised.
Yes, please go, Steve.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Chris and Tanya. It's always nice to see, and I'm not going to say old friends, young friends, always presenting on topics that I think are absolutely critical in the classroom. Just a couple of pointers. Chris, you can use a background screen. The problem is that you've got a blended black background. So what I would do is hang a sheet that is a uniform color, usually one that's unusual, like a green screen. And then when you put the background on under settings, you can choose that you've got a green screen, but you can also choose what color it is. So it might not be green per se, it might be blue, but then you must just make sure that whatever colors you are wearing and whatever device you are demonstrating do not have similar coloring to the green screen behind you. So because I've got a green screen, you're not going to see me blending in with the background. And if I hold up an object and bring it in front of the camera, it's not going to blend with the background, because the background knows that the green screen is what it needs to set it at and not anything else. So that's definitely worth noting. If you are doing lots of presentations online, I would definitely hang a towel or a sheet behind you. If, for example, you're like Tanya and you've got curtains behind you where there's light coming through, then obviously that will confuse the virtual background. And Chris has got a cupboard and a red brick wall and a few different objects. So obviously it's going to get confused. But if you've got one solid background, no problem.
If I can just come in there for a minute, I do appreciate that. And for this presenter view, that's fine. It works perfectly. I did have mine set up beforehand like that. The challenge comes in when you swap in cameras and you use two cameras, because you can't have two different backgrounds on your setting. And as soon as you want to show a actual work surface,
I have a solution.
Different things, then you've got a challenge.
Part two of what I was going to say is that I'm not going to use a document cam. I'm going to use one of these fancy things called a cell phone. And what I do is I sign into the Zoom call with my cell phone. And my cell phone is given co-hosting rights. And then what I do is I place the cell phone on some sort of device that I've built. Maybe it's a couple of Rubik's Cubes that I've planted or a few books, and it holds it up in place. And then all I do is I go onto my cell phone Zoom and I click on share screen. And then whatever comes through the cell phone camera appears on the screen. And that way, I don't have to worry about a background on my cell phone because it's a separate caller as opposed to the same person. And I never have any issues. So that I find that's very useful when you're doing demonstrations. And the camera on a cell phone is incredibly high resolution. So I find that quite beneficial.
Thanks for that, Steve. I think that's a very useful tip, and we'll certainly try that. It's one more thing to try and work on. I think it's really worthwhile exploring and looking at. So thanks for that.
I don't know if anybody else has experience with online workshops. So for us, it was basically been thrown in the deep end since the beginning of last year. And for us, it was like, you know, we try out different things. So what I usually also do is I basically there is a camera app on your laptop as well, so you can share your camera app, and then you also don't have problems with the background. So this is another possibility. So if you don't want to operate with multiple users, if you want to use your own one, this is also what you can do. So you share your camera app screen, so just like you would share your PowerPoint presentation and so on. And the problem that I had with previously was if you are low on memory, that is then your screen is going to freeze. Okay, so you have huge problems. So if you have a very powerful computer, laptop, and so on, and you basically have enough space, then you can also basically use your camera app on your laptop.
Thanks guys for the interaction. Any other questions?
If I can throw another question quickly. Sorry. What do you do when Eskom decides to have power cuts and you are in the middle of presentations? How do you get around that? Do you have a plan B? What is your strategy?
Thanks, Steve. Yes, as I already mentioned briefly, the plan B is to ensure that your co-host has also got a copy of your presentation and that they at least reasonably okay with it so that they can take over. And we have had situations where we've had to do that. In my case, I've worked off a laptop which has got a reasonable battery that works for a while, but the cell phone is an option as a hotspot. And I've also got a UPS on my server, but you know, those are all things that not everybody might have, but certainly using your cell phone as a hotspot or to dial in on often works best when power goes off completely. Tanya, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so I usually have like a little portable dongle that I can put on, you know, a small external battery, you know, these power packs and so on for cell phones. So I basically make sure that when I do my presentation, that I have two possibilities for internet connection. So one is my main internet connection, and the other one I'll basically use as a backup. So, and it works, but to be on the safe side, it's always best to have like a co-host so that they can basically chime in when things go pear-shaped.
All right, thank you. Follow-up question, Steve, perhaps?
No. Just one last thing. You listed some of the resources that you use. There was Toys from Trash and Steve Spangler. Do you have a list of those that people could access?
Steve, I've uploaded a document, kitchen chemistry. So there's basically the resource, a list of where I basically got them from. So Steve Spangler is probably a good choice. But there are lots of interesting websites out there, and if people are really interested to to find out more, also if you want us to run some online workshops with learners or something like this. Chris, if you can just share our address again and our contact details, that would be great.
Okay. I'll just put also in the chat the Toys from Trash. If you just search for Arvind Gupta or Toys from Trash, you're going to come up with a lot of ideas there from him. And just to confirm, Arvind's given us permission to use all of these stuff in all of our workshops, so it's not an issue. I'm sure he'd be happy for anybody to use them. I just want to get the one with the details. Just give me a second. And, oh, sorry, I need to go. I thought we had put them at the end. Let me just get to the front again.
Otherwise, I can.
That's all right. I'll just go back. There we are.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
All right. While Chris is doing that, while Chris is showing their contact details, in the chat, I also just put a link for the main webinar. If you need to go back, we need to be back at 11:15. So we are still well in time. So if you have any other questions, you can still raise them. I'm sure Chris and Tanya will address.
Okay. Nika, I think it looks as though we can wrap up.
Yeah. So thank you once again, guys. It was an awesome demonstration to just give us an insight on what it takes to do a live demonstration online. And doing live demonstrations face-to-face already is a challenge. And with technology, that can either be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your connectivity on the day. There are certainly challenges. But what I like about all of this is that the idea is that no child gets left behind. We try and keep the kids engaged. Thanks so much, guys. Like I said, I put in the link for the main room if you wish to just return. I think we'll be having a plenary session at 11:15. Thanks so much.
Thanks for the hosts and people who ask questions. Appreciate it.
You're welcome to join the other session. As the chair of this session, I call the session closed, and I'll also be joining the main session now.